Redefined podcast. I'm Jenna, and this is Cambry, and we are back today with new mugs, courtesy of our sweet friend. So Tiffany, if you're watching, we love you. So yeah, she saw that we have mugs every time, and she got us some as like a little Christmas present, and it's the cutest thing ever.
Yes.
So
we're very happy with them.
Yes, it's my favorite thing now. And we also have a new setup. Oh my goodness, we're moving up in the world. So yeah, how was your week?
It was pretty good. It's definitely a lot harder with the sun setting at like 4:30 now, but
Time change is so depressing. I can't.
yeah, oh my gosh. It is not the most wonderful time of the year. But yeah, just still keeping on going, you know.
Trekking along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to stay consistent.
I hear you. I hear you.
How was your week?
It was good. Same thing, like time changes, just not a good time for me or anyone. And I also just kind of wish that they would stop doing it.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I don't understand like,
move
what
to
the
Arizona.
point is. I know, like, I don't understand what the point is. But anyway, so yeah, no, it was a really good week. Just, you know, kind of getting ready for the holidays. I decorated my bedroom and bathroom only for Christmas. So
Baby steps, you know.
yeah, I just needed the serotonin with the sun being gone. So.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing.
It is, yes.
Yeah, I pulled out my Christmas decorations as well, and I realized that I don't have enough. Because the place that I was living previously, last Christmas, it was much smaller than the place that we have now. And so we're going to need to revamp our decorations
Nice.
a little bit, which is something to look forward to. So
That is
I'm
kind of
excited.
fun. I know, I'm like debating, because like we moved into, it's technically a bigger place, but we're sharing with my brother-in-law, so I don't have as many rooms to decorate now, even though we have the same number of rooms.
Right.
I can't go decorate his room.
Right.
So I have like almost too much, so maybe you can have some of mine. But I also like want to buy more, because that's who I am.
I kind of want to go like thrift shopping and see if there's any like...
I've seen that, yes, or like you know, Five Below. I love that store so much. I've seen they have really cute stuff this year, because I like I watch Facebook reels, and I've seen like they have a lot of really cute decorations this year for not that expensive. So maybe we'll have to go together on a shopping spree.
I think we'll
Yeah,
have to.
I agree. Let's get through Thanksgiving though.
Yes.
But yeah, so today we're going to talk a little bit about confidence and kind of our experiences as far as lack of confidence, self-doubt, things like that, and then talk a little bit about how we've overcome that and some of the I guess remedies for self-doubt that have worked for us. Specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about discipline and keeping promises to yourself. So, yeah, let's get started. Do you feel like growing up you struggled with being confident and kind of struggled with doubting yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I had 8 siblings, and I was on the younger end of all of those siblings. I was the 6th child, and so I had a lot of people that I looked up to and admired, and I always felt like I didn't measure up to them, and it didn't help that at times my mother would like compare one child to another and kind of be like, well, this kid got these grades and you're only getting these grades and stuff like that. And I mean, she was never very uplifting and encouraging to my self-esteem
anyway.
Yeah, but yeah, and it's interesting because my dad was supportive and encouraging, but he just wasn't there. He wasn't present during those like really important years.
Yeah.
And so I didn't receive that as much from him as would have been helpful. And so yeah, it was definitely like high school age, you know, like freshman year, you see all the girls on the soccer team, and you just, yeah, it's hard to be confident, period, but especially in high school. And so
yeah, it's an awkward time.
yeah, and then I had an eating disorder in high school, and
Samesies.
and so yeah, and I think that it's something that a lot of women struggle with is
For sure.
just doubting themselves, not being confident in who they are, and yeah, I think that can lead to a lot of hatred for everyone, but specifically for yourself, you know. And
So true. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, similar, I think most high school age kids in general have a hard time with that, like middle school, high school. I definitely did. Like, I had kind of a weird experience because growing up, in terms of my parents, I would say my mom was on, like, it was so confusing, and it's still confusing to me because there were times where she would be so, like, tear down my confidence and make comments about how I was less than and compare me to other kids. But then in the same token, like, she would compare me to other kids, like other people's kids, and be like, you're so much better than them. You're like, you know, you're a better dancer, you're prettier, you're skinnier, you're whatever. So it was very confusing growing up because it's like, pick a side. Like, do you like me or do you not like me? So that was that. And then my dad, it's similar situation. Like, my dad, honestly, my dad growing up, he was a pretty good dad. Like, he just wasn't around a whole lot because he was working a lot. And I was dancing, you know, most of the time from, like, middle school on up. So, well, elementary school up, but that's when the confidence issue started, was when I was in middle school. And so, you know, I'd be gone dancing in the evenings, he would get back from work, and we would see each other maybe, like, only on the weekends. So he wasn't able to be a very positive influence or a positive voice for me. And then also I had dance, which is never a very healthy environment, just because, you know, there's a lot of you know, being torn down and told that you're not good enough by teachers and things like that. Weight is a huge thing in the dance world, and I mean, you're staring at yourself in a mirror for minimum 4 hours a day, wearing next to nothing. Like, you're gonna have issues with that. And so I had definitely, I'll say disordered eating. It wasn't like one eating disorder or another, but definitely some food issues and self-esteem issues, and then just overall confidence. I wasn't really allowed to do a whole lot for myself. Like, my mom was kind of controlling and kept a really tight rein on me and did a lot of things for me. So, like, I didn't ever schedule my own doctor's appointments. I didn't call people on the phone, really. Like, I was just a very timid child, and very, like, insecure, and very like, there were some things I had to go do, like, we'd go fundraise for something for school or for dance or whatever, and I just would be, like, shaking because I was so scared to, like, talk to people. So I don't know what you know, it was a combination of things, but I definitely.
And I'm sure it was hard to, like, especially if you have a very controlling mother, it's hard to take pride in the things that you're doing if you're always being forced to do things, you know, or if everything is micromanaged in that way. And so, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, you know. And so, what was, like, the result of all those things, do you think?
Well, we've already touched on just, like, overall lack of confidence. Problems with food and body image was a big one. Self-harm, and just overall depression, anxiety, just feeling awful about myself, and just a lot of self-hatred. And I was kind of scared to try things, like, try new things at all. And so it would be kind of like a cycle of, like, I didn't really want to try things, but because I was afraid of failing or afraid of looking stupid or whatever, I would kind of half-ass them and, like, not really try them 100%, which would make me fail more because I wasn't trying 100%. And then I would feel bad about myself because I failed, and it was just, like, kind of a vicious cycle. So definitely, I think, just overall, I was not prepared to be an adult very well. Like, when I was an adult, like, when I first became an adult, I was terrified of everything. Like, I would have like a panic attack and almost cry. If I had to like call anyone on the phone, or like interviewing for jobs was a really scary thing for me, or even just running errands, like going anywhere that my husband wasn't with me to kind of like help me
alone,
and be like, or like trying new things at all. Like I've never gone into the Social Security office before. That's terrifying to me. I've never gone to the DMV. Like, oh my gosh, I'm like paralyzed. What do I do? So just things like that. But what about you?
A lot of the same things. There's a lot of similarities.
Yes, just a few.
But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of self-esteem issues, and I would look in the mirror and just, you know, hate what I saw, I hate the way that my face looks and the way that my body looks and all those things. And so, yeah, my sophomore year, I think it was, the way that like my family did meals and stuff wasn't like, this might sound funny, it wasn't helpful for having an eating disorder, because we usually all ate together.
So no one could like really, like everyone would know.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but then one summer my mom tore her Achilles tendon, and so she wasn't making as many meals, or we weren't eating as many meals together. And so I remember, like, I've talked to a couple of my sisters about this, that I thought that I was hiding it so well because it felt like it was easier to. But one of my sisters was like, no, like, I noticed you wouldn't eat breakfast and lunch, like, because you could get away with it.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely part of it, is that, you know, if you aren't being positively reinforced by your parents or your friends or whatever, then it's really easy to just only hear negativity from yourself.
100%.
And I think that parents are supposed to play such an important role in our lives and in encouraging us and giving us the confidence to move into adulthood. But yeah, a lot of stuff you just had to figure out on your own, you know? And so, and I mean, that's not, I don't necessarily hate that I had to, but it was still hard, you know? Like, I totally hear you about going to the DMV, or just like making your own doctor's appointments, or calling someone on the phone. Those things, would like, I would shake for like hours afterwards. It was just, it's just a phone call.
Like, calm down.
Yeah.
Be realistic here, but no, it was like so terrifying. And it's kind of funny because I got married before I got my driver's license, so
I remember you talking about that.
It was just all out of order.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
And so I moved out, and then like it felt like by moving out, suddenly I was an adult, but I wasn't prepared to do any adult things.
100%.
And at that point, I wasn't in contact with my mom any longer. And so I would go to my dad, and what I do appreciate about my dad is he was just like, okay, like, go do this.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like trying to be rude or anything. He wasn't. He was just like, okay, like, go to the DMV and so that you can get your title transferred or whatever. And I was just like, no,
please.
you're supposed to do it for me, you know. And I think I do really appreciate that. At that point, I think that was kind of a turning point for me, because I saw that my dad believed in me, and so I was terrified to like go to the DMV on my own, you know, but I did it, and I like got it done. And I remember like I was so scared of like messing up that I like over prepared.
I still do that.
So it was so funny though, because I had like an appointment at the DMV, and the lady was just like, oh my gosh, you just have all your stuff together. And
I don't want to be wrong.
I was like, I don't want to burden you. And I was in and out in like literally 10 minutes.
That's
got my
awesome.
like new plates and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that it's hard being a child in a dysfunctional situation that never instills confidence in anyone.
Right.
And so then to walk out of that and kind of recognize that, you know, you still have to do things. You still have to go get groceries. You still have to act like an adult, even though it's kind of funny because you feel more mature as a child than you do as an adult.
Because you had to be like so mature to handle all the emotional garbage and stuff that was being thrown at you. So like emotionally, in some ways, I feel like we're more mature. And like whenever I finally got a job and stuff, like everyone always was like, you're only 18, because at the time I was only 18, and I was working like a corporate bank job, and they were like, no way, like I thought you were like 25, and I was like, no. So like certain things I'm way more mature and like above my age level, I guess.
Yeah.
And then certain things like
It's almost like the
Just-
difference between emotional maturity, but then emotional regulation.
that is true because the regulation part is not there a
Yeah.
lot of the time. You're just a wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. So yeah, it was definitely really scary becoming an adult and just having to figure those things out. But the good news is that was a huge personal win. Like every time, you know, I don't know if you felt that way, but every time you would go and be terrified of something and you would do it and be like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I did it. Like good for me. Like, you know,
absolutely.
and then as time goes on, you get more comfortable and confident. And like, honestly, ironically, I think having to figure stuff out and kind of being thrown in the deep end, it wasn't like a gentle transition to
Yeah.
adulthood. It was just like, figure it out.
It's kind of like there's no other option.
Yeah, like you're
Sink
an
or
adult
swim.
now. Suck it up.
Yeah.
That actually like, was really good though, because now I'm less afraid to try new things. Like even stuff that was like definitely a big step or like scary, I'm a lot
Like
less
this.
scared. Like this that I was like just getting to. I feel like this was like even a few years ago, this would have been so out of my comfort zone. Like
same.
talking on camera and all of that, and like posting it on the internet. God forbid.
No way.
No, but yeah, I definitely think that that has helped me out in the long run, and now I'm a lot more comfortable. But there are still moments where it's scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you? Hang on. Well, I can edit this part. Okay. So kind of on the topic of confidence, I think for me, the biggest thing that I realized is, yes, growing up in those environments definitely was a huge contributing factor to my lack of confidence. And I think definitely up until the point when I left the house, I totally think that's valid. All of those voices when you're growing up is really difficult to know what you should believe about yourself and all of that. I definitely think once I grew up and became an adult, I think that I kind of perpetuated my lack of confidence by failing myself in certain things. Like some things like we've talked about were a huge win and you felt really great and you're like, yeah, I can totally do that. But I think the more important things in life for me, it was a lot harder to build that belief in myself. Like, the fact that you can accomplish like actual cool things, like going to the DMV, that's great, that's a great personal win, but that's like a simple, somewhat easy thing to achieve, versus like it's hard to have the confidence in yourself to work on your mental health or to
like
work
the daily
on
things almost.
and like things that actually like your actual character and who you are as a person. I think those are the things that it does take a lot of courage to change and to grow. And so I think like for me, like, so I left my parents' house, I got married, and I was definitely lacking confidence, but then I continued to make it worse by, like we talked about, not having confidence meant I didn't try hard in things, and then I would fail because I didn't actually try hard because I was afraid to fail, and then that would just reinforce that belief that I couldn't do things and that I wasn't able and I wasn't worth whatever. And so I think like when I left my parents' house, I was looking for a job. I was a nanny for a little bit and I was still like super anxious, super like unprepared. And then I got kind of tired of that and I was looking for something a little bit different and a little bit bigger. My husband was pushing me to try to find something I actually wanted to do. And so he was like, well, my mom's in real estate, like why don't you try that out? She would mentor you, like it would be a great thing. And so I started taking classes to get my real estate license and self-sabotaged. I think it was like a year to do the course, and it was like $300, I think, which was a lot at the time for me. And I didn't have confidence in myself and I didn't put in the work needed. And I didn't get my classes done in time before the class expired. So, and my husband was like, you didn't do it right the first time, so we're not gonna pay more money for you just to take the whole class over again. And I already kind of knew at that point that it wasn't really like for me. And so But that kind of reinforced the belief that like,
Yeah.
you're a failure, you suck at this, you can't
never
do anything.
right.
Yeah. Or like similarly, like in relationships, marriage, like I wasn't super confident because obviously it's my first time trying it. And I was coming off of having a lot of turmoil and stuff in my life. And so I, was terrified that my husband was going to leave me. And then in turn, I started making choices that like kind of were starting to lead that direction. And we had to rein it back in and work on things. But I think that's something I really learned is that confidence, my lack of confidence was literally because I would just not keep promises to myself. Like I would say I was going to do something like, I'm going to get in shape and start going to the gym. And then I would be like, well, I have no willpower, so now I'm going to just eat a chocolate cake and cry about it. Like, so I just had a lot of times where I would just kind of fail myself and reinforce that belief. Do you feel like you've had any experiences like that where you like you're not really keeping the promises that you make to yourself?
Yeah, and what's so funny about that is like, we talk about trusting other people, but what about like trusting yourself?
That's
know?
That's the most important.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, there have been times when I've just been like so depressed, but I like mental health is a weird thing, it's not like you're failing if you have like a hard day and you like can't make it off the couch. Like that's not really what I'm saying. And I wanted to use my depression and anxiety as an excuse for everything. And I was letting myself down. Like I was ruining friendships over it. And I think that it's hard because in our culture today, like we want to use it as like a safeguard of like, well, I can't do this because I'm too depressed. And I would do that. Like I would use it as an excuse to not eat well and to not get outside or to not change any of my habits really. And I was so comfortable there. And then I had to take a step back and realize like I'm not getting better because I'm not doing anything about it.
Right.
And so this was about like 2 years ago when it was like really, really bad. And I was suicidal and I like couldn't get out of bed and like all these things. And I mean, I had people who were doing their best to try to like drag me along,
Yeah.
But it had to be my choice to want to get better. And for the longest time, I just didn't. Like, I wanted to keep engaging in self-harm and keep on laying in bed and like crying all the time and stuff like that. It just felt safer to me.
Yeah.
But that's like deep down, I knew that that's not what I wanted out of life, that I did want to get better.
And you deserve more.
Yeah, exactly. But it was always this thing where, and I remember talking to my therapist about this, where I was just like, well, I'm scared that I don't have like what it takes to get better. That like I'm never going to be able to make any kind of progress in my life. Which was not true, obviously. Like I'm here today,
right.
Which is huge. And
but in that like dark moment, that's how you genuinely feel.
Yeah, exactly. And I had gotten to the point where I couldn't trust myself to even be alone. And so the mentality that I had was like, well, I can't trust myself with anything else either. And that's a hard place to be in for anyone, which is why I think these conversations are so important, because I think everyone walks around kind of just like, oh, like I know what I'm doing.
Everything's fine.
And everything's fine, but it's okay to be real and like talk to your friends and be like, I am struggling with this. And I think that that's really important, that you have to first recognize where you're lacking in your self-esteem and in your confidence so that you can move forward from it. And oh my gosh, so I've told some other people this story before about my brother, and so you know who you are if you're listening. But so I think I had moved out at this point, but I would talk to my brother Bryce about like some stuff that I was struggling with. And I just remember one time we were in his Jeep and we were just like driving along, don't know where we were going, but he was just talking about how when he first moved out, he had like no idea how to be an adult or how to like take care of himself and live his life. And he was like, so I made a promise to myself, and it was just that I was going to brush my teeth in the morning and brush my teeth at night. And I was just like, what do you mean? You have to do better than that. That was the kind of mentality that I had. But then I realized that what he was talking about is that like the foundation for our habits, it doesn't have to be like an overnight thing that like, you know, your life is radically changed one night and you're no longer depressed or you're no longer having self-esteem issues. But like if you can trust yourself to brush your teeth, you can trust yourself to do other stuff too.
I like that.
And I like that mentality that like it's okay to start small and like build on that, you know, and shout out to Bryce.
Yes.
He's a good dude.
That's honestly like fabulous segue into kind of the other half of what we're talking about, because kind of just like how to build confidence in your life and how to trust yourself. And I think like what you just said is literally perfect, because that's how it was for me. Like, so I was just not keeping promises to myself. I was spinning my wheels, like, especially, you know, we've talked about body image and stuff like that. Like, I knew that I was not in great shape. Like, I didn't like how I looked and how my body was and stuff like that. But then I would like not take the steps to change it. And I would say I would, and then I would fail myself, and so it would just reinforce that, like we've talked about. And you know, then like my husband was like, well, how about we try something different? And so he convinced me, and maybe I'll tag Andy Frisella in this because he's the one who created this program. But he convinced me to do 75 Hard with him, which that, if you guys don't know what that is, it's like a mental toughness challenge that you do for 75 days straight. You have daily tasks that you have to complete, and it's mandatory. Like, you can't make any like shortcuts, or you can't fail at all. Otherwise, you have to start back on day one. So the tasks that you have to do 2 45-minute workouts. They can't be close together. One of them has to be outside. You have to drink a gallon of water, which was really hard for me as someone who grew up hating water. You have to take a progress picture of yourself every day. No alcohol, which was also hard for me because at the time I was really like coping with substances and food. And so yeah, no alcohol. You have to stick to a diet. They don't tell you what the diet is that you do. It's what's best for you, but obviously a clean diet. You can't just go eat pizza. And what else? You have to read 10 pages of a self-improvement book every day. So I may be forgetting one, but I don't think so. So you have to do all these tasks. You can't fail, otherwise you start over at day one. I thought this was going to be impossible. I was terrified. And it didn't sound fun either, because I think when you're in that really low point,
Everything feels impossible.
Everything feels impossible, and I didn't have confidence in myself. And also, like, who wants really to like have discipline?
Yeah,
no one,
I
really.
think that especially like when you come out of a situation where everything was controlled.
True.
Feeling like using control and discipline as methods for well-being can feel like a prison almost.
Yes, that
it's
is
not
a good point.
but
Yeah.
that's what it feels like, because that's how it felt growing up. They're like, you know, everything is controlled, everything, you don't have a choice in what you get to do, and so it might feel kind of like that, even if it is for your benefit.
Yeah, that's actually such a good point, because I definitely think that's a big part of why I felt that way, because I came from like super restricted, super controlled environment to like now I'm an adult and there are no rules and I can do whatever I want, and that sounds so nice. And like, especially like dance, like I didn't really have a whole lot of like time as a kid, or like I didn't have a childhood. Like from the time I was like 11, I was dancing year round, about 40 hours a week, like ridiculousness. So so coming out of that, like I wanted to be free and spontaneous and not care and just screw the rules, I'm gonna do whatever I want. So I did not want to do it, and I was really kind of had a bad attitude about it, to be honest. But I started doing it with him because he kind of made me, and thank God he did, because it literally has changed my life. But yeah, so I started it with him. It was really hard, and thankfully I didn't give up, because having an accountability person is like so much easier for everything. And I kind of didn't see results at first. I was like not a huge fan, and I was like, why am I putting in all this work? But I kept going, got to the end, and I loved the way I looked. Like I didn't really weigh myself, so I didn't know if I like lost any weight or anything, but I looked much better. I felt much better. Like shout out to drinking water. It's underrated. But yeah, so I just like felt so much better. My relationship with my husband was stronger because we had gone through that together and worked hard together. And yeah, it was just like, for the first time, like my eyes were open to the possibilities that I had of, you know, I can keep promises to myself, I can do hard things, and it really kind of develops your mental toughness, because all of those 75 days, the circumstances are not going to be perfect. So you're not going to be able to have like a perfectly structured schedule every single day. Like, we have lives, we have jobs, weather's bad, like stuff happens. So it was definitely the first time in my life that I was like, I actually can like have control over myself and my life and my mentality. And my mentality got so much better, because if I can do all of these things and I cannot be a wuss and I cannot like tap out on this hard challenge that most people don't even attempt, then what can't I do?
Exactly.
And so that was literally the catalyst into changing my whole life, like insane. But life, you know, wasn't perfect from there on out. So I did that, and I didn't stop there, because some people like only do it once and then never do it again. I continued to do it, but it was at that point that my husband was like, well, maybe you want a little more out of life than just working your day job. Like, maybe you should start kind of thinking about that. Like, are you really going to work there your rest of your life? Are you going to, like, there has to be a bigger purpose, because clearly I was kind of at that point, like, sick and tired of this job, like, wasn't happy, wasn't loving it anymore. And I don't think anyone can function long-term in an environment where they don't feel inspired and don't feel like there's a purpose for them. So he started to push me, started to encourage me to try to find something. So then I was like, well, I don't know how to do anything. I'm not a business owner. Like, I could never do that, because growing up I was raised in the most like all-American family where you get a job, you work a 9-to-5 job until you're 65, you retire, take Social Security and your pension, and that's
die.
it. Yes, so it was like, and it was very much like we were raised to be employees. Like, there's nobody in my family that's ever been a business owner, like ever thought about doing anything for themselves more than just the bare minimum American dream. So my like belief in myself was so low. I was like, there's no way, I'm not that person. Like, that's for like special people. That's not me. You have to be a special breed of people. And I thought my husband was that person, because he was thinking that direction, right? And I thought, there's no way I could ever do this. But so he pushed me. So I was like, well, I guess I'll like try to do social media marketing. And I had no idea what I was doing. And back in the same cycle of, I kind of like didn't have belief in myself, so I didn't really try very hard, so I didn't get results. Like, that's how it works. You have to work hard, you have to be smart, all of these things to actually achieve results. So I did that for like 6 months, and I was like, you know, this is just not working. Like, it's not for me, I don't feel it. But it was the first step, trying that and pushing myself out of my comfort zone was the first step in the right direction for me, to where I found photography now and I love it, and I have moments of doubt, but it's like pushed me to be more confident, and the more that I achieve, the more confident I get. So basically all of that to say, like, I think discipline is a huge confidence booster. It's been the biggest confidence builder for me in my whole life, because if I know that I can keep the promises to myself by doing my small daily things, and you don't need to go run a marathon tomorrow. Be smart about it, right? Like, start small. If you're eating junk food every day, like, how about cut out the junk food and start cooking at home? Like, if you don't drink any water, start by drinking a bottle of water a day. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be anything insane, because we'll burn ourselves out if we go from 0 to 100 right away. But I think that's the best thing you can do for yourself is to show yourself that you're capable of keeping the promises you make to yourself, because then what can't you do? Like, and what is there to be insecure about when you know that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to? So
and I think that even if we start at a point of not feeling confident in ourselves, we can at least respect ourselves enough to have discipline, you know, to be like, well, I deserve at least that. You know, I deserve to have clean teeth before I go to bed. You know, just stuff like that. And I like what you said, that it doesn't have to be that you rearrange your entire life tonight. That's
it's not practical.
Yeah, it doesn't work. But if you can build little by little and just go from there, like, you can change your life, and you can be more confident in yourself. And like, I think that it's those little habits that we don't want to think about are actually incredibly important, you know, whether it be just making sure that you're eating good food or drinking enough water or going to bed on time and not doom scrolling on Instagram.
Yes.
And that's not to say that we're perfect all the time, because everyone has their struggles and their bad days, but it's like, well, what are you going to get up and do tomorrow? Like, if you have a bad day, what is your response going to be? To have more bad days?
Because you have to get yourself back on track. That's the biggest issue I see in pretty much everyone is, not that I like have it all figured out, but this is just something I've observed. Most people, they go, I'm so motivated, I'm going to work my ass off and I'm going to achieve all these things and I have to do it right now. So then they go and they like rearrange their whole life. And I've seen this over and over again with like all the people in my life. Pretty much, me too. Where they're like, this is it. This is the moment. They go like, for food, for an example, they're like, I'm gonna go like eat a keto, no carb, like some crazy restrictive diet that they're miserable at. And then they're gonna go, I don't work out at all, so now I'm gonna go work out every single day of the week. Like, then they burn themselves out, and then they get derailed by one bad day, one day where they're like, oh, I failed.
Might as well give up.
And then they give up and they're back to eating pizza every night. So I agree. Like, I think the important part is when you do get on track, what is your response to that?
Yeah, because I think it's all about consistency. And again, just being a reliable person for yourself. And I think for me, it's kind of funny, where I started was just committing to a Bible reading plan, basically. Because, I mean, I would go long stretches of time without, like, even looking at my Bible, which, like, again, it happens. Like, we don't need we don't need to dwell too much on when we failed. We just need to keep on moving forward. But my dad had told me about this app that he was using called Read Scripture, and it just, like, it has you read 3 chapters of a book and then a psalm every day, and then it's just that. There's like maybe a video to watch sometimes, but it's pretty simple. And I had never read through the entire Bible before that, but I did through that app that I used, and it's just like about consistency. Like it wasn't. It felt like a hard thing because like the Bible's big. But then it was just like, okay, it's just 3 chapters a day. And it's kind of funny because that was more than I had read before at once. But since it was making it go by quicker, it felt like more manageable, actually. Because I don't know if you've ever like started in Genesis, like 1 chapter a day, and then you get to Leviticus, and it's just like, okay, do not read 1 chapter of Leviticus a day.
It's rough. I've done that, actually.
And that was a problem for me, is that like I would do too little, and then I would give up on it, actually. And so I had told my dad that I was using the app, so we started being like, hey, like, how's it going? Like, so he was kind of like holding me accountable as well.
That's so helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think he even realized it. He was just excited about the app, you know? But
we love Jason.
We do. And it's just like those little things that we honestly don't give them as much significance as they actually have. But those are like the foundation of our lives, you know, just those little habits that we might not even think about, but they're so important.
Absolutely. Like for everything. And that's like the biggest thing for me that has changed just how I live my life is I have a list of non-negotiable tasks every single day that must be completed before I go to bed. No excuses. Because there's a million excuses why you can't do something, or why you shouldn't do something, or why your day was bad so you don't feel like it. But having it be absolutely non-negotiable, like you cannot go to bed until they're done, is so important. And like I'm not a very internally motivated person, believe it or not. Like I am not at all. Like everything was kind of handed to me on a silver platter as a kid in a way. Like I had a rough childhood, but also like some things like financially and stuff we were in good shape, so like I didn't struggle for basic stuff. So I kind of just I have no internal motivation whatsoever naturally, but something like that where you have non-negotiable daily tasks that are absolutely required of you, that like totally changed my life to where it's like kind of having like a program that you're in that you absolutely have to, and it's almost like an external thing that's motivating you, has kind of like rewired my brain so that now I can do it for myself and I am motivated for myself. But yeah, it's just so important to like start small, but have a list of things that you do every day, even if it's taking a walk, getting some sunshine and fresh air. Like if you are a Christian, you know, reading your Bible, whatever spiritual stuff you participate in, if that's like meditating or whatever for you, having your thing that works for you that you do every single day is so important, and it really helps with your belief in yourself, and it really will definitely help you long term. And I definitely think too, like if you are a Christian and you believe in God, like we don't want to say that God is not a part of building your confidence either, because he is. Like if you believe in God, you believe he's your father and that he died for you, then that is where a huge part of your confidence should come from, is what he says about you. Absolutely. And that's definitely been a huge part, like learning that and growing in that for me. That's definitely been a huge piece. So I don't want to leave that part out. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that for me, I grew up in a church where I believed that God loved me because he had to. Like, he loves me because Jesus died on the cross for me, so he didn't have a choice. But I never believed that God actually wanted anything to do with me apart from that. Which, having read through the Bible now, I see that that's completely not true. That not only does God love me and call me his daughter, he also likes me. Like, he wants to hear from me, you know? Like, I think that, and a lot of that has been reflected in my relationship with my dad, where, I mean, we just like hanging out together, you know, and that's something that has been encouraging, is to take that and then look at who God is because he's a father. And like a father wants to be with his kids, you know, he wants to spend time with them.
And if your earthly dad is this great, imagine how great your heavenly father is.
Yes, exactly. And if your earthly dad isn't that great, then look
he's
how
still
great your
amazing.
heavenly father is.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's, especially when it came to my mental health, I was telling myself a lot of lies about who I was. And I mean, that's just depression, you know, thinking that you're worthless and that nothing matters. And those are lies, is the truth, though. And I think that for me, a big part of it, that both, and we've talked about this a little bit, but that my therapist and that my sister, they had me do is like, okay, if you catch yourself thinking negatively towards yourself, then what is the truth? You have to replace it. You have to replace the lie with the truth. And a lot of that for me did come from what the Bible says about who God is and who I am as well. And I think that everyone has their different ways of building their life, and I'm grateful that God has been part of both of ours.
Yes, me too. Couldn't do it without him. But yeah, I hope that, you know, this was kind of helpful to you. And you know, confidence, I do think, is something we all struggle with at one time or another. So we hope that you can take something from this and apply it, and just know that it is possible to just, you know, you have more control over your life than you think you do. So coming from us. But anyway, we love you guys. We hope you have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.